Hi guys, do you guys have any questions? Please keep it nice and relevant. Someone asked me, am I married, in one of the comment section. I don't know. I don't think I have like a lifestyle page going, so I don't know how that was relevant. So yeah, let's try and keep the stuff relevant. It is so hot. How are you guys doing? Is anyone else studying? Or it's just me? Oh, it's so hot. My hair's just in my face. Okay, that's better. I should start my own AI hedge fund using multiple AI bots, working as my teams as researcher and developer at the same time. Okay. Do you have CFA? Do you have experience in the industry? What's your background? Why specifically? I'm multitasking today, so if you guys have questions, you can ask away. I don't know why you would see me and then ask other people what is she doing when I'm right here. That's incel behavior. It's weird. It's like that thing you guys do in the comment section where we're talking to each other about the woman that's like in the video. It's weird. We don't do that here. CFA Level 3, working at Citadel for past 3 years as quant developer. Should I go for my own hedge fund? Girl, I don't know. You've got the experience. I mean, but as you know, running a hedge fund is so much more than just getting the skills. For one, where you're going to get the assets, and you know you need a minimum X amount to get into the really esoteric types of instruments. So, where you're going to get that? Are you aiming for retail? Are you aiming for institutional business? It's not enough to have 3 years of experience if you want institutional money. For retail, it's more likely you're going to get seeded by, you know, someone who's got money that can afford to lose. So do you know any really rich people who are willing to put money in that's going to pay for you, your salary, your office, your Bloomberg terminal? You get what I mean? It's a cute idea though. My answer's not on the thing. My answer's not in the multiple choice. Hey. Let's try that one. Let's see. I'm doing a quiz. Okay. Recovery rate is equal to 0.6, which implies, is it loss severity? Is 2.5. Okay, exposure. Year 2 exposure. Okay, just before second coupon. So 2 year. 1 year left on 10. So it's equal to 4 plus 1 plus 2.5 that's my year 2 exposure. Then year 2 expected loss is equal to probability of default times loss given default. Default is equal to exposure times loss severity. 5.4634 times 0.4 times, that would be 42.1854. So that's going to be 0.99 times 42.1854. 4.76. Expected loss as equals to 0.4176, 0.9518. Which implies CVA 1.42, 0.3975. It is so hot. Yarr. 42.38. Okay, that one looks like it's on the memo. Oh, not memo, multiple choice question. So that's always positive. CVA is 1.88. Trading at 3.53. CFA is plus 2.88. Ref bond payment is 4 is 3. So I've got 4 1 plus 2, 4 1 plus 2.25, 4 1 plus 2.5. 3,9216 plus 2.25 seconds. 3,8. It is so hot. Sorry, the what's names are timed. The quizzes are timed. I got 100%. Let me just check on number 1. The things are timed, so I have to try and be proper with the time, because it shows you your score relative to others, but it also shows you the time you took under 90 minutes relative to others. So I have to make sure that I'm taking that serious. Oh, done. Okay. Okay. I got the startup funds on my own. Around 120 million using the clients I have made past year. Also got my personal funds throughout the market, which I can pull through. Elisa, you look so beautiful. I know. 120 million. I actually don't know how much it takes to start a hedge fund, but if you've got seeding, I guess that's good. Yeah, I mean, it's a good starting point. You can pay salaries, you can pay 1 or 2 support staff, but isn't a Bloomberg terminal like 400,000 a year? Do you have like soft, what's the name for that? Do you have someone coming on board to help you with brokerage and research? So I don't know. Should I go for my own hedge fund? Yeah, you're asking the wrong person. I only work at a hedge fund, so I don't know how to go about starting one. And I don't have nearly the skill set to bother knowing that kind of information yet. It's too early in my career for me to consider that path. It's so hot and there's like light in my eye and it's just, yeah, I'm not doing well. Let me get some juice. Hi guys. Does anyone have questions? Okay. Oh, it's hot. Are there quant developer jobs in South Africa, or is it only quant analyst? Don't worry about the title. Tell me what kind of work you want to do, what kind of company you want to do it at, and then I'll tell you if there's something like that or not. Don't worry about the title. Everyone is a quant nowadays. Whether people know how to code or not, they're calling themselves quants. So don't worry about that. Tell me what you want to do and which company you want to do it at. When is the big day? Hey, dog. 20 May. 20 May. I don't know if I want to do bushfire after that. 20 or 21 May. I don't know if I want to do bushfire after that or if I just want to go home after that. Or go to Durban or go to Joburg. I don't know what I want to do to celebrate, basically. Today's session is quite light. That's why I'm multitasking. It's not a lot in terms of math, and it's towards the end. I'm finishing fixed income. So it's credit spread and then credit analysis of securitized debt. And then I'll be done with fixed income. Oh, sorry, then I'll have credit default swaps. But that's also like terms and terminology. Then once I'm done with this, I'm done with fixed income. So that's why I'm able to multitask. It's not very mathy and yeah. I'm studying computer science and AI at UCT. I started learning C++ a while ago, and I think I like it. Basically, I'd like to work on the infrastructure and the companies use to make their trade. Okay. I'm trying to think. There's a big company that the CIB, like corporate investment banking companies use, or banks use in Joburg. So RMB, is it Murex? Is it Murex? Is it Murex? Murex. Yeah, Murex. So look it up. Murex. I don't know how to type. Also, I don't want to bother with it. But yeah, look up Murex. They are capital markets tech solution company. Hi, Doughside 1948. Cool, cool, cool. I'm getting a helmet soon and a jacket for my bike. And hopefully the bike is going to be up and running soon as well. So yeah, I'm also excited about posting about my hobbies. It's very rare to find people that look like me posting content where they're just living, doing things that are just different. So I like that because we're not all the same. That's the beauty about, looking like me, I guess. We're all very different people. So it's nice to have us represented in different walks of life and different whatevers. So I love coming across people who camp, people who love the outdoors like myself. Um, when I used to read, I used to like coming across people who like to read as well. So yeah, I think that's why I like posting the stuff I do, and then I'll like hashtag it so that other people who are looking for people that look like them are also able to find it. So yeah, I think it's just nice and important to do stuff like that. quick question on the delivery bikes. Which insurance companies do you recommend? I know this is about Career Chat. No, that's okay. This is about anything. I'm probably online until 10, so you can ask anything, I don't mind, or anything I've posted about. I don't actually know what I would recommend, simply because it's business insurance and I don't have any business insurance on my delivery bikes at this moment. I self-insure, so I don't know what would be price competitive. I would definitely look at Naked, but I don't think they do bikes yet, because last year when I looked into it, they didn't. And that's just because I have Naked in my personal capacity. But you can definitely try King Price. Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit complex because the license of the driver that needs to be signed up is the driver that you're going to hire. And every time you change the driver, you're going to have to update all of that, number one. Number two, it might not make it economical. It might be more economical to self-insure. That's why I'm so comfortable getting bikes, because bikes are what, 18,000 if you go brand new. So if a bike gets written off 6 months after, what is that? 6 times 2.4. I've already got 14,000. Whereas if a car gets written off and I'm not insured 6 months after, then I'm in deep trouble. And the car would likely be financed, but the bike would likely have been bought in cash. So you can try King Price, you can try Naked, like I said, but I'm speaking from a personal insurance or private car insurance perspective, not a business fleet type of insurance situation. So yeah. It's too hot. Yarr. Oh God. It's hot. Any questions, guys? How do I add the thing? I forgot. Where? Q&A. Make it peach. Yeah.
Okay, friends, in this module, we're going to talk more about credit spread and also the term structure of credit spread. So, two LOSs interpret the changes in credit spread because credit spread fluctuates over the life of the bond as conditions change, as expectations over the future changes. And then we will talk about the determinants of the term structure of credit spread. So, first, credit spread we already know is compensation for default risk or credit risk. Because it is evaluated relative to benchmark security, it also includes any liquidity differences between the benchmark between the risky security and the benchmark security. So it essentially implicitly includes the liquidity risk premium if the risky bond is not as liquid as the benchmark security. Now, if credit spread is a function of probability of default and the recovery rate, we went through those calculations with, you have the exposure, then you have the probability of default, probability of survival, loss given default based on a certain recovery rate. And then we calculate expected loss, finally present value of expected loss. So the two key inputs is default probability and recovery rate. Now here, this default probability is not your risk neutral probability. Okay, that is not what you're talking about. So I want to explicitly mention this to you. Now, as investors, we have changes in our expectations about the default probability and recovery rate. More specifically, as our expectations about the state of the economy changes, if we are expecting a recession, then we'll revise our estimates of probability of default and recovery rate. Probability of default will revise it upwards because more likely companies are going to default during a recession, and recovery rate will be lower, so we will lower our expectations for that. So we revise our estimates based on changing expectations about the state of the economy. So an expectation of impending recession increases spread, which makes a lot of sense. If your probability of default goes up, credit spread should go up as long as your expectation is is consistent with the market's expectation. If everybody is basically following the same set of expectations. All right. So this is an example from the curriculum, and all we are doing here is doing a lengthy calculation about calculation of spread under different assumptions. Specifically, we are changing the hazard rate, which obviously affects the probability of default, and then the recovery rate is.
Okay, so it's an example. So payment is 3. Sigma is 0.2. RF is 1,4844. Okay, spread. What language to use in your job? Okay, so I'm the only coder at work, so I use Python, I use R, depending on the, actually it depends if I'm building for purpose or if I'm building for scale. So if I'm building for purpose, I just want to get it out, I build in R because I can deploy in Shiny relatively quickly if the application is small and I need to build quickly. If I'm building for scale, which is what I'm currently doing now on my project, then it has to be Python with a Flask front end, but that is heavily complex and it's a longer build. Yeah, so I'll use Python. There's a lot of old scripts at work. The guys used VBA. So a lot of the guys studied actuarial science, but a lot of them never bothered with qualifying. So they've got that programming inclination. So yeah, there's some VBA. I know how to read VBA. I know how to write it. I just don't bother with it. They always tease me about it, and I always say my next employer won't appreciate my VBA skills because it is it's an old language. It's a language of the past. It's good to be able to read it, but it's of no use to be able to write it. Not in 2026, not in 2027. So I do a lot of things that migrate off of VBA. Yeah, those are the languages I use. Yeah. Okay. As someone who would like to be a data scientist, which projects would you recommend I do to stand out in the job market? Any advice would be appreciated. I'm currently studying a postgrad diploma in data science. It depends what market you want to work in, right? So if you want to work in finance, there's a lot of data on Treasury's website, so National Treasury. There's a lot of information there. You want to play around with the budget, you want to play around with funding or issuance, which is basically the amount that National Treasury has to come borrow because the amount that we collect as a country in taxes is not enough for to meet the expenditure. So it's like when you are running your monthly budget, you earn 10,000, but you spend 12,000. So you need to borrow the 2,000 from someone, and that's when you would come to the capital markets and you would borrow from us. So the national budget is out, and they've got tons of Excel workbooks about it. And then they've also got something that they drop monthly that shows the budget up until now, and then it shows projections for the remaining months. So I think our financial year is, I want to say Feb, yeah, March to Feb. So that's why we have the budget now for the upcoming financial year as a country. So you can build something to that. The data is there and it's free. The South African Reserve Bank also has economic returns, sub BA 900 economic returns. That's for the banks. So all of the banks will talk about how much they get in retail deposits, how much they give out in loans. So that's a nice relationship because they get about 500 billion in total in retail deposits, and then they give out, I think, about 4 point something trillion in home loans and stuff like that. So clearly something else is funding that difference because they're getting that 3.5 difference from someone. Sorry, the home loan market or the loan market is 4 trillion. The home loans, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's for something. I don't know if it's million or billion, but I know that retail deposits are 500 billion. That I know for a fact. So that you could do, get the data programmatically from the South African Reserve Bank's website, and you could build something if you're interviewing for a bank or if you want to showcase a project to the bank. I'm basically trying to show you that depending on who you're interviewing for or the sector that you want to work in, you can go and find relevant data for that sector and build something that you can take with you on a tablet or whatever to present. Or you can attach, print it out and show it in PDF format if you need to send it to cold call and ask for an interview and then present it when you're at the interview. It doesn't matter if your interpretation is wrong if you're a junior. They just want to see that you've actually done the work because, like I was saying here earlier, everyone is a quantitative analyst. I'm calling myself quant in SA here, but there's so many of us, and some of us can't code. So it becomes difficult for recruiters to shop around for talent, and it also becomes difficult for talent to show themselves because we all have the same CV, we all have the same degrees, but a lot of the skills you learn are outside of school, right? So I think just find relevant information. If you're going for a healthcare company, go and find information that, Sanka or the National Department of Health puts out and make something meaningful out of that information. Just show how you can add value in the workplace. Yeah, well, using information that is relevant to that particular sector. You're not going to go and present healthcare sector in an interview with, I don't know, FNB. But if you're going to discovery, then you can show that kind of information. Yeah. And find South African data that's relevant. I know it's not as easy. I mean, Stats SA is there. They've got time series. So just try and find something relevant because What are we going to do with South African or with American data that you're busy interpreting and you've built this cool tool for? Yeah, well, guys, I'm so hot.
Different. So 3 scenarios, and you are given the benchmark rate is 1.4844. The bond has a 3% annual coupon rate.
Yeah.
Now, we are given, these are given tables. So basically, they didn't need to give this to us, but they have given it to us. You're not calculating anything. This is directly given to us. And under the first scenario, where the assumption is 1.5% hazard rate and 40% is the recovery rate, the CVA is calculated to be 2.6983. Under the second assumption, with a higher, let me go back, sorry. The second assumption, the hazard rate is higher, but the recovery rate is also higher, and your CVA is higher, 5.3173. And then, sorry. So we started with 1.5 hazard rate and 40%. Sorry, second one, we are increasing the probability of default, leaving the recovery rate same as assumption 1. So only change that you're occurring is we are doubling the hazard rate calculation. The last one is going back to the original hazard rate, but the recovery rate is lower. So obviously, lower recovery rate, again, the CVA will be higher as compared to assumption 1. So these are the 3 CVAs. Again, all of this is directly given to us in the question. So
Sorry about that. VW is mad. I'm getting a payment notification for a service and maintenance plan I bought last year. Doug.
CVA given to us in this text box, and we would have been able to do all of our calculations. But that's up. So able to do based on assumption 1. So the questions are coming up right now. You are asked to calculate the fair value of the bond. So remember, for calculating the fair value of the bond, we first calculate VND minus CVA. The CVA, again, is calculated the VND value for the default-free bond calculation.
How many years is this bond? 3 bond. PV. So 3 payment 1.4844. My I3 is my 100,000 complete present. Hi Tando, can someone make the academic research in data science more relevant to real world? If you were to do research in data science and finance, what area would you focus on? Data science and finance, 2026. I mean, markets are always interested in the relationship between oil, gold, and the rand, because the rand is considered a commodity currency. We're a small open economy in South Africa. We're also very liquid, so we're one of the core currencies that foreign investors express favor for emerging market currencies or emerging market bonds or emerging market assets, relative to expressing dislike for it. So we're a gateway, I guess, to emerging markets. which means that when there's an interest or there's an appetite for risky assets, South Africa benefits. But at the same time, when there's risk off and investors want to go to safe havens, then South Africa experiences a lot more outflows than other currencies. The one thing that keeps us steady is the fact that we're a commodity currency. So things like terms of trade are very positive for us because we export a lot of raw minerals in our country. And we benefited tremendously through that. If you listen to the budget speech, you wouldn't have heard Enoch say anything about it, but it's in there, it's penciled in there if you go to the National Treasury's website. As a result, they were able to give like tax breaks, they were able to adjust the tax brackets for once, and they were able to not need to raise taxes because the commodity companies did so well that they had a windfall in terms of the corporate income tax that they would have paid. So they didn't need to recover or recoup other tax elsewhere. So that's always an interesting relationship. It's always relevant, Rand, uh, um, 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 gold. And then now what's becoming more relevant is obviously oil, because we're an oil importer and we're always at the mercy of the global powers when it comes to that. It's also nice and relevant in terms of doing it now because you would have had a couple of oil shocks. You would have had obviously COVID, which was interesting because there you had demand exceeding supply. Oh, sorry, you had supply exceeding demand because there was a global slowdown. So no one wanted oil because nothing was running, no one was outside, factories weren't running. And then you have 2022, which was Russia Ukraine war, so that also threatened oil, and you saw oil spiking up. The rand reacted, and now you've got Strait of Hormuz. You also have the same thing. But gold is doing its own thing. Gold is like at 2.5 times where it was during 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. So the oil shock is still there, the rand is still reacting, but now gold is at another level. So what becomes of the rand? So I would do something like that. You also have the option to go the inflation targeting route. Again, that's new and relevant. It's our second inflation target after the 3 to 6% band. We're aiming for the 3 now after them saying 3 to 6 and then 4% midpoint, I think around 2017. That was the theme. So now it's just 3 with maybe +1. So that's also quite interesting. You also want to go into there and play around with that. Look at markets that are similar to us. What have they done? How they have done differently. Brazil's a really good, case study when it comes to that. Like I said, it's relevant. It's the kind of thing that if I was building a model at work, I would Google, your paper would come up, I would read it, I would use it. If I had more questions, I would likely reach out. Um, so I've said inflation, I've said gold, oil, and the rand. If you are interested in the social sciences, I would definitely look into, I don't want to say poverty straight, but I would look into how any of these things actually filters down to the real economy. So, rand, oil, gold, what does that mean to the man on the street in South Africa who is earning X, etc., etc.? Rand, oil, gold, what does it mean for imports to the average South African? I own two Cavellas, right? Super proud. I've wanted them since I was 16, 17. And they, I bought them kwa Spitz, ne? So the genuine leather shoes from Spitz, and Spitz falls under AVI. It's a listed JSE company, right? So when my equity colleagues meet with these guys, one of the things they talk about is how the real wage of South Africans has gone down in USD terms, such that Ikavela was actually more affordable when I was in high school than it is now. So the adults that were my age in 20 what, 2010, 2011, 2012, it was easier for them to buy Cavella than now because Spitz imports them, right? So effectively, we're talking about USD ZAR relative to now. So if I hadn't wasted my time in high school, I would have been able to afford a Cavella easier than I did now that I bought them last year. So that's what I mean by linking the macro to the micro, where well, but you're looking at all of these big numbers, but what does it mean to the man on the street? And these are important topics, the social sciences, that aren't done enough because I don't think there's a lot of, well, there's not a lot of, people like us in the, well, in research, there's not a lot of us in post-grad to begin with, so there's not a lot of us in research. So the topics that matter to us are not well represented. Well, so if you've got the opportunity to do something and that is close to your heart, then why wouldn't you? Um, I think that's something that if I ever went back to school for higher education, I would definitely pursue something that I think can be valuable to the man on the street. I mean, we're looking at a basic income grant now, and we're looking at it on aggregate. We're looking at the big number. Is it going to balloon from 35 billion to 100 to 120 based on relaxing the rules, based on increasing the amount, based on relaxing the rules so that you've got more people coming in and increasing the amount. Now you're ballooning from something like 35 billion on National Treasury's balance sheet to potentially 100 to 120 billion. So now we're looking at it on aggregate. But what does that mean for the man on the street, right? So the fixed income team would be looking at it as Treasury doesn't have an extra 90 billion to put into this, to plow into this. But the guy in the equity team would be like, oh, that's good for ShopRite. That's good for Boxer. That can help Boxer subsidize Pick and Pay because Boxer's doing well, but Pick and Pay is doing shit. That's a bad word. Not doing well. Because these guys that are earning a basic income grant are largely unemployed, and we know the provinces with the highest unemployment rates are Eastern Cape, Nelimpopo. So you've got guys that are unemployed getting this constant stream of money and spending at these retailers, and these retailers are then showing the profits and paying us back in dividends. Yeah, you will. So you must never think that just because you're in finance, you have to do something that is like just that. There's a lot of ways to link it to the man on the street. Yeah, well, my team was very excited. I think yesterday or the day before, there's a new guy at Woolworths. So the guy who heads Woolworths Food is now been promoted to head up the whole group. Apparently, it's a big boy and he's well, respected. And I was just saying, I'm interested to see what he does to help Woolworths attract the black middle class in terms of fashion. Because the last time I bought things at Woolworths was, okay, maybe 3 years ago. I was here in Cape Town on holiday. I bought like a couple of skirts and stuff like that. They had a special. But consistently, I don't buy at Woolworths because the stuff doesn't appeal to me. But my mom used to buy my school blazers there. She used to buy my shirts at Edgar's, but my blazers she preferred Woolworths. So every 3 or 4 years, I would get a new blazer. She would buy it at Woolies. The Spencer, like the Spencer that you wear under a shirt, she liked Woolworths quality. But I'm 31 last birthday, and I never feel like, oh, I need a new top. Let me go check at Woolworths. So it's missed us in terms of the fashion, but the black middle class loves Woolworths food. So my thinking was this guy has done so well on attracting this certain demographic. In South Africa, it's got this aspirational thing. Everyone wants to shop at Woolworths. how can he turn around the clothing business to be sort of the same. So I think yeah, I forgot my point and how I was gonna link it to your topic, but I was just showing you that there's a lot of ways that you can look at things. You can even go through following a specific CEO, how they've moved around different companies. Because the CEO of this company goes to become the CEO of that company, goes to become the CEO of that company, because it's all about operations, right? If you're doing bread at Tiger Brands and you did very well at that, ShopRite can take you and say, hey, we're struggling with our logistics, come and help us here. Pick and Pay can take you and say, hey, we are struggling with Pick and Pay ASAP and competing with Checker 6060. Come and help us here. Because you've been so good at operations with bread, you are likely to become good with operations with Pick and Pay ASAP. You are likely to be good helping with clicks, helping with Discam. So you could also go at that, I guess, what's the name, like following a certain CEO and how he's made or added value at different JSE listed companies. I don't know. Look, there's lots you can do. There's lots you can do. Okay, someone said, hi Tando, I have aspirations to pivot to mergers and acquisitions in the next 5 years. I'm currently in the audit space, but I'm trying to figure out how I can build a roadmap that can help me to pivot, enable me to pivot. That Clip Network, you should definitely get a mentor. You should get a mentor in your current space, right? Chat to them, see how you can better prepare yourself to get to where you want to be in 5 years. I think that is first prize, because there might be exposure where you currently are that can help you even speed up that timeline from 5 to maybe 3 years. So get a mentor in your space, have a coffee, chat to them about your aspirations, and see how they can advise you for that. Mergers and acquisitions is interesting. Mergers and acquisitions, it's an interesting space. It's thin, so very small head count, which means the bonus pool is bigger because there's less people to split it with. It's also more interesting and more involved. You really get deep down into the companies that you get involved in. So I think, yeah, get a mentor, but also study companies and past acquisitions as well. That will definitely help you to better understand what you think you're getting yourself into. Okay, and someone says, let's see where down. Should I go for more information? Hi, Pratish. I think I answered that. I don't know if you should go for your own and start a hedge fund. I don't know. I've never started a hedge fund. I just work at one. So I don't know. Thank you so much. This is great advice. Give me potential area of interest. For now, I'm leaning towards the inflation targeting ish, but I am fan of bonds so much. But bonds are a factor of inflation targeting, right? You know that, right? So National Treasury, like I was saying, collects 10,000 rand in terms of taxes, but spends 12,000 and now needs to borrow 2,000 rands. Ne? So as a country, we are short 2,000 rand for the financial year. So National Treasury comes to, let's say, coronation and says we need to borrow 2,000 rand. How do they do that? They issue a bond, right? They issue a bond. The bond is saying we are going to pay you a coupon every 6 months. Let's say it's a 2-year bond. Okay, let's make it a 10-year bond. We're gonna give you the 2,000. Coronation says we're gonna give you the 2,000, but every 6 months you must pay us a coupon. So coupon is like interest. Every 6 months you must pay us interest, and then after 10 years you must pay us back the 2,000. But the interest rate we're going to charge on this is based on a number of things. And one of those things is the inflation, right? So they'll charge based on how likely is the government to default, right? So that's credit risk. How long is the bond? So that's the liquidity risk. So a 2-year bond will be less risky than a 10-year bond. So Coronation will lend National Treasury for 2 years at a lower bond yield than the 10-year bond. So where does inflation come in? So Coronation can lend South African National Treasury, or Coronation can lend the US government. Both governments are running at a deficit. Both governments need to come to the capital markets to borrow money, right? Now, the United States Department has a lower inflation than South Africa. South Africa's past inflation print, I think we're at 3.6 now. So we're 3.6. The US, I believe, is at 2.9. I stand corrected. Let me actually look it up. It's not difficult. So the US has such nice data and clean data. They've got the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. So just go and play around there. They've got CPI and their methodology and all kinds of things. They've got really clean data. So US CPI in Feb. It's 2.5. Yeah. So US CPI is 2.5, right? And South Africa is 3.5, 3.6. Let's call it 3.5 so that it's just a 1% difference. What does that mean? It means that when Coronation gets the coupon 6 months from now, the South African coupon would have lost a percent more in terms of time value than the US coupon, because inflation eats away at your buying power, right? So when Coronation lends the South African government, they have to make up for that inflation differential between the US and South Africa, right? Then I already mentioned the liquidity premium and the credit default. So the US government has a lower probability of default than the South African government, just based on the debt to, what's the name ratio? I don't want to say debt to income, debt to GDP ratio. So they output so much relative to how much they borrow, whereas we output far less than that, which means that we are more likely to default on our debt as a country than they are. So all of these things gets to a certain rate that Coronation says, okay, South African national government, we are comfortable borrowing you the 2,000 rand for the next 10 years at 9%, let's call it. Whereas in the US 10-year is what, 4.2, 4.3%. So those differences in the bond yields are basically owing to things like inflation, which is supposed to lower the borrowing costs. So if you read up on inflation, you will see that the whole point that the South African Reserve Bank is bringing forward is exactly so that it lowers the borrowing costs. They're saying we want to lower the inflation target so that it's cheaper for us to borrow as a country. You understand what I mean? Yeah. So it's not one and the other. Like, you can't write about bonds without understanding inflation targeting, and you can't write about inflation targeting without understanding bonds. So it's not one or the other. It's this. It's one. It's the same thing. What to thank you. Sure. Fuck, my, like, there's so much light in my eyes. I feel like I'm drunk.
But the yield to maturity is for risk-free or benchmark bond. We calculate the price of the bond to be 104.4151. So we are going to get the value of the risky bond as simply the difference between the value of risk-free minus the CVA. So it turns out to be 101.72. So that is under the assumption one. And let me go back. So the second question in value. Answer the question one, you calculate the credit spread. So 101.72 becomes an input for the second part of the question. And again, risk-free yield to maturity, 1.4844 directly given to us. Now we are going to calculate the yield on this risky bond based on the price calculated in part one. And under assumption 2, we are increasing the hazard rate, which led to higher CVA. Obviously, under assumption 2, the CVA is given to us as 5.3173. We already have here, let's check. So based on assumption 2, CVA to us as 5.3173. We already have the value of VND carried over from part 1 in 0.09 on the risky bond. Under assumption 2. And obviously, as you see, the yield to maturity is higher at 3.3237. Now the credit spread, what we see is 1.8 going under assumption 3, CDA.
Oh, nice. Well done, man. Well done. Keep up the good work. That's what this guy on that's what this guy on the Kaplan study masterclass thinks. At the end of every video, he likes to, well, not every, but most of the videos, he says, keep up the good work. And like, I like it. So keep up the good work.
Directly given 3.5978. This is in between 1 and 2. And the fair value risky bond.
It is so hot.
corresponding a little higher than assumption 2 and a little lower than assumption 1. Calculating the yield to maturity, which is also going to be in between those two values. So the credit spread under assumption 3 is 123 basis points. So to summarize, as you see, under the first assumption, we had the credit spread of 91 basis points. Under the second assumption, the only thing that changed is your hazard rate. Hazard rate went up, which led to higher credit spread. Under assumption 3, as compared to assumption 1, the hazard rate is same, but the recovery rate went down, which led to higher CVA and higher yield to, credit spread as compared to the assumption 1 credit spread. So nothing fancy, we are just going through repetition to calculate credit spread. This should be mechanical for you, should not be challenging. Now we move on to the concept of term structure of credit spread. Term structure is simply plotting, so you have credit spread on the vertical axis and term or maturity on the horizontal axis. So you're just plotting the credit spread over time depending on maturity of the underlying securities that are in your pool. Now you can do a credit spread for a single issue if there are several issues with several different maturities, or you can do based on sector. So for example, I can do credit spread for AAA bonds, and I may see this is what AAA sector credit spread looks like. This is an average of all the bonds that are within with a rating of AAA. Now the use of credit spread is it allows me for relative pricing. So if I have a bond, I can look up for that maturity, what is the credit spread for other AAA sectors? Allows for relative pricing, making a judgment whether this bond, specific bond that I'm considering, is offering me a higher credit spread. If it does, then that bond would be undervalued. Higher credit spread relative to justified means undervalued bond. So that is relative pricing evaluation. And then secondly, it can also be useful for pricing new issue. So we are evaluating a new issue, and we, based on our analysis, we think this issue would be rated at.
Hi, Evelyn. Actuaries can work anywhere. I'm busy closing Spotify. The app just opened on my PC, and I've seen that they're trying to make a social media thing out of it now. They ask you to, first of all, you can message people. They want me to add a profile picture, and I don't know what else. So I'm sure there's an actuary there doing stuff, because I know they've got recommendation engines and stuff like that. So you can be an actuary that works at Spotify and that annoys us by trying to convert a simple music app into Instagram. So yeah, you can work at Spotify, babe. It is so hot. Ekapa.
As AA, and therefore, based on right now for this term, AA premium is 49 basis points. I'll include that and see what the price would be. It allows for, it uses interpolation for missing data. So if you are, remember your credit spread is simply the yield on risky debt versus yield on benchmark security. And if there is a gap, let's say for example, you have 3.5-year bonds, corporate bonds, but you don't have 3.5-year treasury bonds. Well, then you basically interpolate, which is basically taking 3-year yield and 4-year yield and dividing by 2, which is exactly 3.5. Now, oftentimes when you are doing this credit spread term structure and you're pooling them in a sector, like a AAA sector and so forth, Now, the credit spread between a AAA bond with additional provisions such as first lien, secured versus unsecured, and so forth, these additional provisions will obviously influence the spread on that specific bond. But when you're looking for the sector as a whole, those differences kind of get averaged out. So they distort the calculated spread. Now, what are the determinants of term structure? What is the shape of the term structure? Generally, higher rated sectors have flatter term structure. It makes a lot of sense. Remember, flat means long-term credit spread is not that high as compared to short-term credit spread. For higher rated bonds, we are not, our concern for long-term credit quality of issuers is less. It's not that it is zero, but it is less as compared to our concern for long-term stability or credit quality or solvency of low-graded bonds, lower quality bonds. So higher rated sectors have flatter term structure, may have a little bit upward sloping, but lower graded bonds will have more steeper term structure. Financial conditions. Well, when we are expecting recession, credit spread generally widen, and because of more uncertainty at the longer end, they become widen even further for longer dated credit securities. So market demand and supply. This is about companies when they refinance a security. Remember, credit spread embeds liquidity risk premium. We already talked about it. So when a company takes a maturing short-term debt and refinances it, so what are they doing? They are rolling it over into longer dated security, longer dated bond. And that longer dated newly issued bonds tend to be more liquid. So they may have a lower credit spread. The longer dated spread may have a lower credit spread as compared to the ones that are just retired, ones that are just paid off. And so it may even lead to inverted term structure on account of that transaction, on account of that changes in the market. Finally, equity market volatility. Equity market volatility increases credit spread because obviously it is an indicator of the conditions in the market, conditions about the future. All right, let's look at a couple of examples on term structure. So during a presentation about research, or how the research team estimates the probability of default for a particular bond issuer, Loeb was asked for his thoughts on the shape of the term structure. Which statement is he most likely to include, or which statement would be most accurate response to that question? So choice A says the term structure is typically flat or slightly upward sloping for high quality investment grade bonds, and that is true. High yield bonds are more sensitive to credit cycle, however, and can have a more upwardly sloped term structure credit spread than investment grade bonds, or even an inverted curve. And so that is your correct answer. It is basically differentiating between
Great.
term structure of high quality bonds versus high yield bond. The second option is term structure of credit spread for corporate bond is always upward sloping, more so the weaker credit quality, because probability of default is correlated with time to maturity.
That's
and
not
that
true.
is not true. Finally, the last one, there is no consistent pattern. The shape depends entirely on the industry factors.
No.
It affects the expected return on bond if the bond is held.
Let me actually write that part down. The high yield bonds are more sensitive to the credit cycle. However, and can have a more upwardly sloped term structure of credit spreads than investment grade bonds. Even an inverted curve. Oh, all of the women in me are
Maturity doesn't
tired.
affect the return on the bond. So again, choice A is your correct answer. Now, the second example, this is about, again, term structure of credit spread. Statement 1 says the credit term structure for most highly rated securities tend to be either flat or slightly upward sloping. That
Yes.
statement is correct. Statement 2 says the credit term structure for lower rated securities often steeper and credit spread widen with expectations of strong economic growth.
False.
They widen
They
with expectations.
they tighten.
The first part of the statement is correct.
Yes.
The term structure is steeper for lower grade securities.
Yes.
But the credit spreads do not widen during expectations of strong economic growth. In fact, they narrow. So what you may end up seeing, in fact, is when the economy is entering a growth state, or it's booming, it's an expansion, you will see benchmark. Market yields to be higher, at, perhaps due to central bank actions, but the credit spread are narrower. So the corporate yield will be lower because credit spreads are narrower during economic expansion. So once again, statement 2 is incorrect. Statement 1 is correct. That means choice A is your correct answer.
Done. Ooh, there's a quiz. Oh. 5 questions. Did you go down? Did you go down? Using a typical 4% double A, conclude the credit spread curve is. Girl, I don't know. Oh, I don't think I need to do calcs. This is the yield, and this is the term. That's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 0.75. It's definitely upward sloping. Credit spreads are most likely A, positively related to probability of default and loss severity. B, positively related to probability of default and recovery rate. C, negatively related to probability of default and recovery rate. They're positively related to probability of default because you are going to get charged more to borrow money if you are higher default, and they are positively related to loss severity because if the loss is more severe, then you're going to get charged more for that as well. Bearing in mind that loss severity is just probability of default multiplied by loss given default. Therefore, A. Credit spread curves of the highest rated bond sectors tend to be A, flat or downward sloping, B, flat or slightly upward sloping, C, steeply upward sloping, B, flat or slightly upward sloping. Flat credit curves are most likely indicative of A, expectations of economic expansion, B, expectations of a recession, or C, stable expectations about future recovery rates and default probabilities. It's C. If you don't think anything's going to change, you're going to lend out at the same, irrespective of the term or the point in the curve. The shape of the credit curve is least, let me highlight least, likely to be affected by demand and supply forces in the market, A. B, sector quality, or C, the swap rate curve. B, sector quality. Supply and demand definitely speaks to the shape of the market forces. The swap rate curve definitely speaks to that because the swap are just the par rates put together, and the bond price off of the swap curve if there's no corresponding benchmark bond. So the swap curve definitely speaks to the shape of the credit curve. So it has to be B, which is sector quality. About 60%. How? Oh, I had to do a calculation here. How did you even know this is a 5-year bond? Ayo. Yeah, I'm wrong on the last one as well. The shape of the credit curve, there's the corrections. The shape of the credit spread curve is determined by sector quality, market demand and supply forces, company value models, and financial conditions in the economy. I mean, I guess I'm just typing here, I'm bookmarking this quiz, and I'm writing here, I got question 1 deliciously wrong. I didn't do the whole calc. I didn't think I needed a calc. So that's obviously a problem, because it means I don't understand what they're asking in the question. So I bookmarked it so I could come back to it, because now I'm drowsy with sleep. I can't do a calculation question. Okay. So I'm left with credit analysis of securitized debt. It's like super small, it's just English. Then I'm gonna do that. After this, there's gonna be the masterclass on it. Should also be quick, just English. And then there's key concepts, and then I've got credit default swaps. Definitely something I'll finish by tomorrow morning, first thing. So I want to be up 6:30 already at it. After this, I don't think I can do alternative investments or derivatives. I'm so fucking tired. So I'm gonna have to do something else. I'll do a poll, so whoever's up tomorrow can help me decide what's next. Either financial statements analysis, which is a massive portion. So I've got 632 things to do. Financial statement analysis is 106. So it is 17%. I can do financial statement analysis, or I can do economics. Economics is 3%, so 16% or 3%, but I'm gonna do the quiz tomorrow morning, so only the people who are online get to vote if it's gonna be financial statements or it's going to be, let me move, they don't want to move anymore. If it's going to be financial statements analysis or economics, I like the idea of financial statements analysis, because if I can get, I'm currently at 26%, if I can get 26 plus 16%, that's 42. If I can get that down, now in March, then I'm 50% there, and I've got to April. Fuck. Yeah. So I'm probably going to do financial statements analysis. After that, it's obvious corporate issuers. Then there's equity valuation, which a lot of you are going to enjoy. Yeah. That pipeline is straight. Then I can always come back to economics, ne derivatives, nendon. But yeah, are you guys still here? All right, I'm gonna call it a night, guys. I said 10 p.m. It's 10 p.m. I've done well. Performance tracker puts me at 26%. Like I said, we're here tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. 6:30. We're here with a cup of coffee and push maybe up until 10, because at 10 I'm expecting my mechanic to come check out if everything is good with my bike. So 6 to 10 tomorrow we're pushing. See you then. Keep up the good work.